I cannot believe it's March because it feels like it was just Christmas, and it's kind of blowing my mind because I don't know where this year is going. It's gonna be next Christmas before I know it. Hello everyone, it is Samantha and I hope you guys are having a fantastic day today. I am here today to film my February reading wrap-up, which was pretty much the exact opposite of my January reading wrap-up, as in I read barely anything. I had a really busy month last month. There was a lot going on with work and I had a lot of doctor's appointments and things of that nature. So needless to say, I was very busy and a little bit stressed out, and that basically translated into the fact that I did not read very much. Also, the first two books that I picked up were really boring, which also kind of made me not feel like reading. So basically February was a disaster, but I'm here to hope in March will be better. So I'm just going to kind of launch into the sad statistics for my reading month in February because, I mean, there's only so many statistics you can have on 3 books, one of which I didn't even finish, so yeah. Okay, so as I said, in the month of February, I read 3 books. Actually, I read 2 and then I DNF'd one because it was very disappointingly boring. Of the books that I read, 66% were hardcover and the other 33% were trade paperbacks, which just, you know, basically translates to 2 are hardcovers and 1 was a paperback. In terms of years published, 1 was from this year, 1 was from 2016, and 1 was from the early 2000s. In terms of where I acquired them, 1 was a copy from a publisher and the others I purchased myself. In terms of star ratings, 1 received 0 stars because I DNF'd it, 1 was 5 stars, and 1 was 3 stars. So I was pretty evenly distributed across the 0 to 5 star rating board. In terms of pages read, I only read 1,038 pages, which averages to about 33 pages a day. It was very, very depressing reading month. Just so sad. So that's pretty much it for the statistics because I really don't have any other interesting statistics because I basically read nothing. So we're just gonna get into the books, what I thought of them. So let's do that, shall we? And apparently I'm trying to break my iPad. I'm all sorts of a mess, okay? All sorts of a mess. Okay, so the first book that I finished in February was Arctic Incident by Eowyn Colfer. I do not have this copy right now because I lent it to my coworker because it is also her favorite series. This was not my favorite book in the series. I do remember that from when I read the series back in high school. I ended up rating it 3 out of 5 stars, primarily because it was just a little bit boring. I don't know what it is about this one, but I never found it as engaging as the others. As you guys may or may not know, I'm actually trying to do a reread of all of Artemis Fowl's books. I was trying to do it all the way through February and March, and then February happened and that plan kind of died. So I was going to be doing Twitter chats and going to try and resurrect those in March, but forgive me for dropping the ball, guys. So as I said, while I enjoy the story, this one was not my favorite in the series. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars because I gave the writing 3 stars, I gave the characters 4 out of 5 stars, the plot 3 out of 5 stars, the world building and like just descriptions of the world, I gave 3 out of 5 stars for an overall rating of 3 out of 5 stars. The second book that I picked up in February was the DNF, and I was really, really depressed about this because it was on my most anticipated reads list, and it was Ship of Smoke and Steel by Django Wexler. It was really boring. That's basically why I DNF'd it. I got really, really bored of the plot. It was moving really slow. I just was not invested in the story. I mean, the concept sounded really intriguing. Some of the characters are fairly interesting, but I got so bored with the plot and the story because it wasn't moving. And so I gave up at 50% because why suffer through a boring book when there are literally millions of books out there for me to read? So DNF'd it, I did. The writing was okay. I don't think I'm a big fan of Django Wexler's writing. So if I had to rate the writing of this book, I really didn't want to rate it because I didn't finish it, but if I had to rate the writing, it would probably be like 2 out of 5 stars. I would give the plot 3 out of 5 stars because it was a fairly interesting plot. It was just, in my opinion, poorly executed. I would give the characters 4 out of 5 stars because they were fairly intriguing characters, and I would give the world building like 2 stars because there was not a whole lot of world building. I'm still not entirely certain if this was supposed to be like a post-apocalyptic world, so it takes place in our world and people have power. I don't know because he really gave no history at all. So I wasn't the biggest fan of the book and I'm really disappointed by it, but it's a little bit sad. It's supposed to be boarding this ship that takes people with power and basically trying to do a mutiny and take possession of the ship to save her sister who's basically being held hostage. The concept, you would think, sounds intriguing, but nothing was happening and I was very sad about that. So DNF'd it I did. So this was a very disappointing book, unfortunately. I hope some of you had better luck with it than I did. Alas, I'm going to be selling it back to pals. All right, the final book that I finished in February was my favorite read from the month. It was a 5-star read, and it was The Queen's Poisoner by Jeff Wheeler. As you guys know, I read his Harbinger series in January of the books that are out. I loved it. I've loved Jeff Wheeler for years, and all of his books are connected. They take place in these two worlds that are connected to each other, and this takes place in the other world. So this takes place in King Fountain, which is the other world, like literally different worlds. They can like bridge, you know, they're like literally interdimensional worlds, but they're very different, but these two different worlds can like communicate, and a lot of history has happened between them. So this takes place in the other world. It was really fun reading a book set in the King Fountain world, because it was fun reading a book that takes place in the King Fountain world. I hadn't gotten to this series yet. I read of course, this Mirrorwood series where you first get introduced to this world because they invade. And then I read the Harbinger series, which takes place in the same world as Mirrorwood, except for years and years and years in the future. And this one, I believe, takes place again in the past. So I'm kind of a little bit hazy on when the timeline of these books. I think it's on his website, so I'll have to look it up. But suffice it to say, I enjoyed the story. It follows the main character of Owen, who is basically sent to the court of the king as a hostage. His family basically were traitors to the king, and he's basically being used as leverage to keep his family loyal. It's definitely a King Arthur and a King Richard retelling, which I found really interesting. Those are two areas of history that I find fascinating. As you guys know, I love Arthurian legends. So the king in this story, King Severin, is very much a King Richard type character. He's been accused of killing his nephews. He's supposed to be kind of like have a spinal disability, so he's like described as being like more hunchback like King Richard, if you're familiar with the story of King Richard. Also, much like the story of King Richard, where a lot of historians now believe a lot of the things that are attributed to him were actually propaganda by the people who deposed him from the throne, the same kind of a plot is also used in this story, where King Severin isn't quite as bad as people had painted him to be. So Owen shows up about the age of 8 in this first book, and he discovers he does have a power. He has fountain blessed, as they call those who have magic power in this world, and it's basically used to kind of keep him alive. So it was a really interesting story. This is definitely going to be turning into an Arthurian retelling, because there is a King Arthur type legend in the story called the Prophecy of the Dreadful Dead Man, and it's all about a king named Andrew who dies, who is killed at the hand of his son, and is basically prophesied to come back in the time of this world's greatest need. So it's very much like a King Arthur retelling, and I love King Arthur retellings. So suffice it to say, I really enjoyed the story. The ending was great. I had to get book 2. I'm actually almost done with book 2, which is Thief's Daughter, and it takes place about 10 years after the end of this one. So yeah, I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. I get the writing 4.5 out of 5 stars, the plot 5 stars, the characters 5 stars, and the world building 4 out of 5 stars for an overall rating of 5 stars. So really enjoyable book. I'm going to be getting the rest of the series this month, and hopefully we'll be kind of speed reading through it because they're really quick reads and they're really, really fun. Alright guys, that's it for my February reading wrap up. As you can tell, it was a very disappointing reading month for all of us, especially myself, but hopefully you still found this video entertaining, because I'm sorry guys, I dropped the ball. But that's okay, because sometimes we need slow reading months to really appreciate the great reading months, and I'm okay with that. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. Until next time, happy reading. Bye!